We've just been to this party in the outskirts of town. My brother had been really drunk and I had no choice but to drive. Home was an hour-long drive from the party, and I was in a convoy, so we wouldn't get lost on the dark intersections. The highway was dark. Occasionally, we'd pass by a gas station or a small diner. The van in front of us, whom I was convoying, stopped on a nearby fast food chain on the other side of the highway. Normally, I'd go after them, as they wouldn't know how to get back to the city. I decided to park on the side of the road and call them. Apparently, my brother was stoned and just passed out in the back. It was 1:04, the moon shining bright with the stars. I got out to breathe the late night air and called Rob. When he picked up the phone, I was met with their loud laughter and continuous teasing. I waited until he spoke to the phone, muttered the words, "Hello?" in a weak voice. I told him that we'd be going and that they'd have to find their way back to the city. He agreed and continued back to his drunk friends. I laughed and said to bid me goodbye to them. I hung up, not caring whether he heard my request. I went back to the car and started the engine. I continued down the road. I opened the radio for some tunes, but the only thing on it was a podcast for the upcoming elections. I turned it off, afraid that it might bore me to sleep. 20 minutes later, we're already passing the bridge that connects the two towns we need to pass before reaching the city. I was told by my parents to be careful when passing through this particular bridge. It's a winding path with very few streetlights to illuminate the road. I turned my fog lights on to better see where I'm going. There's also another thing they said. Honk twice to show respect to the bridge. Now, I'm not big on superstition. I have the "to see is to believe" motto when we discuss such things, and, of course, I was skeptical when they said this. Nonetheless, it couldn't hurt to try, right? I honk. Once. I was about to honk again when I reached the end of the bridge. I didn't really care at that point. I honked once, and that seemed to be enough for me. 2 minutes later, my brother woke up from his slumber and asked me where we were. I said that we had just passed the bridge. He nodded and volunteered to take the wheel. Even though I was kinda sleepy, I shook my head, not trusting how awake he was. It was 1:26 a.m. when it started getting weird. My brother and I had been talking, and, apparently, I wasn't paying attention to the road. My brother quickly screamed, "Stop." I looked forward and saw an old man passing by a pedestrian crossing. Weird. I never remembered a pedestrian crossing here. I shrugged it off and waited for the man to cross. But instead of doing that, he stared intensely on us. The gaze lasted for a minute. He squinted and continued crossing. All that time, we watched him cross the road, a little spooked. We continued forward and passed by a gas station. Everything was off after that encounter. My brother said he felt uneasy. I argued that it was just the alcohol kicking in. We passed by another gas station, and another, and another, and another. My brother asked where we were now. He also added that we had passed the same gas station for 10 minutes straight. Again, I said it was the alcohol, but I was kinda spooked myself. I kept driving, and we passed the same gas station 3 more times. My brother started screaming now. He said there was something wrong and that we needed to stop the car. I agreed, a little unnerved. We stopped on the side of the highway and pulled up my GPS. To my horror, we didn't get any signal here. I asked my brother to pull out his phone and call the guys. He said he left his phone with them. We were starting to panic. We agreed to stop on the gasoline we passed by a million times now. We arrived there in no time at all. I parked on an empty space and asked my brother to ask for directions from the employees. I'll be doing the same in the store. I entered the convenience store and immediately asked for directions from the cashier, but to my surprise, the person standing behind the counter was not a young boy or a girl. It was an old man. I asked him which way to the city, but he just stared at me. I quickly realized what was happening. It was the guy from before. He was holding the same stare he did before. Not breaking his gaze, he handed me a small sticky note. "Honk twice," it read. Another old man, identical from the one behind the counter, came from the break room and gave me the same dead stare. I slowly backed away and ran. They were looking at me the entire time. I quickly found my brother behind the wheel. He shouted at me to get in. I rushed to the passenger seat and we drove off. "What the fuck, Kate?" I said to him. He started panicking as we drove. He told me to call someone immediately. I dialed 911 and waited for the voice on the other end. When someone spoke, what he said sent shivers down my spine. "Honk twice." We passed by gas station after gas station, but we never seemed to get anywhere. I checked the time only to find my watch broken. The time displayed on my phone contained squares instead of numbers. The more gas stations we passed, the more panicked we get. My brother starts crying, yelling, cursing, begging, and even praying. I was just confused. We stopped again on the side of the road to calm down. I asked him what was happening, but my brother just didn't calm down. I tried 911 again, and again I was met with the phrase, "Honk twice." Then I started crying, not knowing what to do. Without thinking, I ran far from the highway. When I blinked, I was back at the side of the road. My brother asked me where the fuck I went. I said I didn't know. 5 minutes passed, or so I think, and we partially calmed down. We started driving again, and again we were met with endless gas stations and an endless stretch of road. We both looked forward, trying to spot anything different from what we were experiencing. I decided to look at the back. I wish I had never done that. A man was sitting still on the back seat. He had a long trench coat and awkwardly big shoes. He was smiling. I screamed at the top of my lungs. My brother did too. The man moved, covering both of our mouths. At that moment, we were not driving anymore. We were flying. He removed his hands on our mouths. I tried to curse, but my vocal cords were not working. Soon, everything vanished. In front of me were millions of stars. I tried closing my eyes, but I could not move a muscle. I was glued to the car seat, but the car wasn't there anymore. Cade was also gone. I was alone, floating in the vastness of space. I cried. And when everything stopped, nothing was left. No stars, no anything. Then just like that, I saw the old man. He was surrounded by an orb of blue light. I screamed at him. Nothing came out. One by one, the orbs glowed, followed by singing. Angelic singing. After it stopped, The old man moved forward to face me. He nodded, and everything faded. Just like that, I was back at the road. I was facing the bridge. Cade was back in a second. He freaked. I calmed him down, and I started to drive. As soon as the car was on the bridge, I honked twice. When we got to the intersection, there was no pedestrian crossing, no sign of the old man. We were relieved and got back home. When we got home, the mother of Rob was hugging my mom. They were both crying. Turns out that the van they were driving crashed, and no bodies have been found. We could do more than just guess what happened to them. Until now, we were afraid to drive through that route again. If we honked once, and that happened to us, then what would be the consequences when we didn't blow the horn at all? Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you want to see more, let me know in the comments below, and tell me what you thought of this narration. Make sure to follow me on Twitter for updates, and if you'd like to get early videos, shoutouts, and much more, I'd appreciate it if you check out my Patreon page. It's a place where you can help support my channel while getting awesome rewards in the process, and every pledge helps out a ton, no matter the size. So if you'd like to see all the rewards I offer and consider becoming a patron, it'd mean a ton to me if you'd click the link in the description and just check it out. And don't forget to show some love to the amazingly talented authors who make these narrations possible. Have a good night, everybody. Cheers.